All right, this meet is also being streamed on YouTube, so I think we can start now.
Okay.
Okay. All right, everyone, good evening. I would like to welcome all of you to the second online session of the Consulting Sprint by the Consulting and Analytics Club of IIT Guwahati. It's my pleasure to introduce our guest speaker for today's session, Mr. Aman Tomar. Mr. Tomar is currently a consultant at the Boston Consulting Group, BCG. He holds an MBA from the Darden School of Business at the University of Virginia and a BTech from IIT Guwahati from the class of 2015. He's an alumni of IIT Guwahati. Over the years, he has built rich experience across strategy, consulting, problem solving, and guiding organizations through complex business challenges. His journey from IITG, a top MBA program, and now to BCG offers valuable insights for anyone who's aspiring for a career in consulting, analytics, or a leadership role. In today's session, we will focus on guesstimates and open Q&A, where Mr. Tomar will walk us through structured problem-solving approaches, share practical tips for tackling consulting-style questions, and also take time to answer all of your queries directly. So please join me in giving a warm welcome to Mr. Tomar, and over to you, sir.
Awesome. Thanks, Sanchit. Thanks for the warm welcome. Thanks for the great words. Um, and yeah, I mean, it's great to be back in whatever capacity I was able to contribute. And also, it's amazingly energizing. Always when I speak with students, there's a saying in Hindi, "Ghat ghat ka pani pee ke काफी कुछ सीखने को मिलता है." So I've paid my dues, done a lot of different things over the last 10 years. So I'm excited to be here and would love to keep this session very open Q&A style. Whatever information that we are looking for around consulting, problem solving. I know there is a lot of good quality information in books and whatnot. Like we live in the digital world, so use me in answering all of your tactical cobwebs that you have today. Right? How to structure your preparation, how to kind of build a mindset towards whatever milestone you're chasing. And I would be happy to help you and design a pathway for you, right? So that I have kind of treasured my own journey, and wherever you can pick bits and bits of helpful nuggets from there, we'll be happy to share that. Awesome. With that, I would firstly like to just gauge the room, right? And would love to understand where all of you are coming from. So, Sanchit, if we can just open it with the mentee and see what people are looking to get out of this session. Think you're on mute, Sanchit.
All right. So this is the Menti link. You can scan the link to join the Menti meter and also interact with the speaker today. Please scan the QR, everybody.
Are you projecting something? I'm actually not able to see something on the screen.
Oh, okay. 1 second.
Mm.
Should work now.
And people in the chat, please type text um, if you're able to see it, if you're able to scan it, if there are no IT issues as such. We
Are
have.
you able to see it?
I am still not able to see it, surprisingly. What about others? Let's hear from the folks.
It's visible. Yeah, I think it's visible for people.
Okay.
Can you see the screen on the meeting link in
I
our
do see, but
meeting?
I see an astronaut, reverse astronaut, just that.
Oh, I need to start that.
Yeah. Yeah, let's see what people are writing in the Menti. Let's start. Let's open the results and see what people are looking to get out of the session.
No, my question to you is, can you see the screen in the meeting?
No, I'm not.
Okay, that's
Maybe try to reshare.
no.
I'm pinging you what I see. Something like
So actually, just it is visible to us. The screen that Sanchit is sharing, the Menti screen.
okay. Maybe just I don't know if it's just not visible to me, but if it's visible to others, if you can just show me the results, like what are people saying?
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that. Just give me a
Yeah.
second.
Or if you can just share, I don't know if I can look. It could be it's my work laptop, could be a restriction there.
Yeah, I think that's the issue.
Hmm. Okay, so what are the top few things, Sanchit? If you can just probably voice them out for me.
You can join the link in the box, so you can view it as a participant.
Let's see. Yeah, that's what I think. It's restricting me to see the QR and see any sort of result. So maybe if any of you in the consulting club can just voice out what are the top few things, maybe we can just pick from there.
All right, the first question's up. What comes to your mind when we think about guesstimates?
Hmm. Have there been any responses to that, or that's something that people are looking to get out of the session? Like, what is the response from the group?
Approximation, says one person.
Okay. And if Menti is too complicated, guys, just use the chat as much as possible. You can just type in your words. What are you looking to get out of this session in the next 30, 40 minutes so that we use this time productively? Be as candid, as tactical as possible so that we steer the conversation towards that direction.
Uh, the responses have started coming in. They say approximation, structured thinking,
Hmm.
guesstimates are useful in placement interviews,
Hmm.
analytical thinking.
Okay.
What else? Guess plus estimate.
Got it. Got it. No, I think these are all relevant responses, relevant thoughts when you think about how to master doing guesstimates. And guesstimates is essentially it's a very small portion of this entire gambit of structural thinking, right? What we call framework oriented, analytical oriented thinking, right? Guesstimates is just one way of kind of arriving at the answer. In the real world, when you start working on problems, solving problems, I know there will be no dearth of resources to get to answers, right? You will have a lot of resources in terms of chat GPT, reports, Googling, just age old reaching out to experts, right? To put together a sizing and a number to any problem that you come at, right? But it's a very common situation that people face, right, in work, where if you're sitting with a client having a coffee and somebody says, "What would be, the situation if we do something like that?" Right? They just come up with a question, and it's called back of the envelope math. You're literally taking a walk, and you're just taking some interesting assumptions and putting together something realistic to steer towards a decision, right? It's not something perfect, but it's also enough to help you get to the decision. So that is why it's called guesstimates. It's still an estimate. You still need to sharpen the assumptions that you make in a guesstimate, but it's still good enough for you to take the directionally correct decision, right? Um, cool. So I think we all know what it is, and it is definitely going to be an important, very helpful exercise for me. And um, I kid you not, sort of like I do it almost everyday basis because in my job, almost every day, it's like several guesstimates to be done in a day because we have to come to an answer and client is always shy of giving more data to us. So we always come in with our perspective. Anyway, let me share my screen and let me know, guys, if it's visible. Let's start with taking a sample problem statement, and we'll use this sample problem statement to thread the different sections of how to solve a guesstimate. What are the good practices while you navigate through those different sections? And ultimately, how do you have to sort of present yourself as a credible candidate in an interview situation, right? Right now, we all are sort of like this room, at least I can assume, is interested in getting through the interview and taking the job, right? The rest of the learning will happen on the job. I agree. Let me share my screen.
Yes, all good.
Is it visible?
Yep.
Okay. And let me just make a few changes so that it's just more visible. Cool.
All good.
Awesome. Okay. So let me also put this in a situational and a contextual format, right? Let's say you are having a conversation with somebody in the C-suite of Tata Motors, and they just put out a very open question to you. What's the overall market size going to be for EVs in India for 2025? That's the problem statement, and that's what we have to put a number to after the end of 20, 25 minutes of this session, right? Um, First of all, is the problem statement clear to everyone? Just give me a thumbs up if it's understandable, if it's clear. If anybody doesn't know EVs means electric vehicles.
Aman, sorry, can you just put it in the presentation mode?
Yeah. I did, but I don't think it'll let me share in the presentation mode.
Okay, this works then.
Are you still able to see my screen?
No, I think we need to go back to the previous one.
Wait a second.
Yeah, better.
Okay,
Yeah, better.
cool. All right. Like I said, can someone give me like a quick thumbs up if everybody understands the problem statement well? Give me like quick hits, a few thumbs up. And if there are any questions, please use this raise hand button in your chat with Get to post any questions. And it could be the fact that I might not be seeing the question since I am seeing a limited piece of this window. So Sanchit, just please let me know if there are any questions in the chat.
Yes, okay.
Okay. So whenever like there is a very broad macro problem statement like this, what's the market size going to be for EVs in India for 2025? So there are some details in the prompt itself which are factor which we have to take into account and which are factual constraints that you have to honor because the client or your interviewer is looking to get a very specific answer. So, A, they're looking to for details for just 2025 as the scope, timeline scope, right? Also, they're looking for EVs, electric vehicles, and not all kinds of vehicles, right? Thirdly, it is going to be a market size. Now, market size in itself, like there are multiple factors that come into picture.
You're muted.
Are we back?
Yes, yes, all good.
And I guess I need to share the screen again.
Yes, yes.
Cool.
Yeah, all good.
Okay. Cool. Let's take it step by step. First step, whenever you hear a prompt like that, don't jump into solving it immediately. Oh, we have to put together a market size to EVs. Okay, let me put together some millions, some thousands, some numbers and start putting the math together. That's not what they're looking for. They're looking for somebody who can be a thought partner in this exercise. So, firstly, take a pause, clarify the problem statement clearly. It's a very, very important step. It's extremely embarrassing, and it has happened with me personally. As soon as you hear the problem statement, you start putting together an answer to it, right? It's difficult, and sometimes it becomes very robotic and inhuman for somebody to contextualize it, right? Always clarify it and understand what is the scope clearly. Now, in this particular example, right, EVs could mean any kind of vehicles, right? Cars, bikes, trucks, buses, right? Tempos, anything could be electric. Uh, so it's good to clarify that with the interviewer. Okay, what is going to be the scope of this particular exercise, right? There's a smart way to clarify that, like an example mentioned in the third bullet below, third bullet on your screen. Um, you're talking to somebody from C-suite of Tata, and Tata manufactures four-wheelers, both commercial and passenger segment. So it could be that they could be looking for only cars and trucks as two specific segments. For this exercise, like I said in the red, let's take cars for simplicity of calculation and stuff. Now, the second piece of the puzzle was market size, right? Now, market size could be in terms of what's the total number of cars sold in 2025, or it could be the total INR value, or it could be a total millionized value, right? Dollar millionized value. A lot of times you would see that when we talk about annualized valuations, those kind of statistics, these are reported in terms of US dollars and in terms of millions for simplicity and ease of kind of keeping the units kind of sanitized. So clarify it with the interview. It's always helpful. Hey, do I use number of cars like as my finally reported number or finally reported answer? Or do I use some sort of like currency, INR or dollar millions, whichever is kind of easy, right? That's the step one. So you clarified the problem statement, you understood what you have to calculate, right? Very discreetly. Now, step two. So what are the different components that will help you arrive at the answer, right? And this is where I think the ambiguity and the the different approaches which are possible comes into picture, right? And this is where I think your different kind of exposure to different statistics at a macro level also come into picture. So for me, I would have taken an approach in terms of at the most granular level, I know what is the total number of cars sold as a market, right? As a number or as a statistic, it's sort of more grounded to me, right? And it completely depends on what kind of news you consume, what kind of content you consume, what kind of industry you come from, right? There could be many different factors, but always think that at the most macro level, there is always something that you can pick as the starting point while you solve a guesstimate. If you don't know what is the annualized total number of cars sold in India, it's fine. Think in terms of further broad and further macro level. What is the total number of households in India, right? And these are some of the things which I believe before the interview season, it's always good to keep in your back pocket. Some sort of like demographic statistics about your country, your market, where you're going to be operating in. If it's a um, international client, it's always good to learn some of the adjacent markets as well. It's You can also think of, hey, let me do a few top developing economies and a few top developed economies where people could be interested in. And hence, knowing some of these macro statistics about these markets will put you into a first good starting point, a good foot in the door to solve any kind of a guesstimate problem. In this case, I picked what is the total number of cars sold in a year typically in India. And that number is somewhere close to 4 million. I knew it, so I could start putting my thoughts around this fact and start my exercise after that. If I didn't know it, I could have always said, okay, let's start with the total number of households. What are the urban households where there could be higher concentration of cars, since EVs is a more urban phenomena, urban adoption right now. That's where the EV and the all of the infrastructure around EV networks like that kind of exists in the country. So I would going to be kind of put a funnel within that urban infra and urban households, and I'll start my guesstimate problem from there, right? So there is always some sort of high level metric that you should know and you should be aware of, which will help you put your estimations together. Okay, in this case, I took a very simple approach. I'll say that I know what are the total number of cars sold typically in India. Let's say last year the number was X, and there is some sort of growth percentage, growth statistic by which and my economy grows, put some number to that, that gives me the total number of cars sold. Then there is some sort of penetration of EV vehicles within the car sold segment. And then finally, there is some sort of average selling price that I can put, right? And these three different components of this mathematical equation will help me come to an answer, right? And think about it as a, again, you're having a conversation over coffee. You don't even have like a lot of a laptop or a calculator with you. You literally have a pen and a paper, and you just have to put a basic A times B times C kind of a math, right? And that's the scope of the guesstimate exercise. Now, what is important? A, firstly, internalizing this approach. And second, which I think students and candidates like you and me who are kind of early into this exercise, we kind of don't do well, is communicate this approach to the interviewer, right? So if you, there's two examples, right? Example one, so I think there is a total number of cars, there is some sort of penetration, there is some sort of average selling price, and hey, I think the answer is 10 billion. That's one approach. I think your interviewer wouldn't know anything about you and how you think if that is the way you communicate the answer. The second way to communicate the answer is just to be like a human, how you would think structurally and how would you communicate your thoughts structurally to the interviewer. And this is what will get you in. They are trying to test you on that skill versus your ability to get to the answer, right? So you would have to say, hey, I'm going to be thinking in terms of what is the total number of cars, the total car automobile kind of a market in India. Then I'm going to think about my EV penetration, and then I'm going to be estimating some sort of average selling price of an EV vehicle. And then taking a product of these three things, I can arrive at some number, and then I can look at some sort of subsegments and I can sharpen those assumptions around subsegments. So, excuse me. So this kind of an approach will tell that you have the ability to bring a macro complex problem into simplistic subsegments. And that is what will, you know, help you shine in an interview. And that is what consultants do all the time. All right. Any questions here? I'll just take a quick pause and then we'll move to the next steps. But I just want to see that if it's fine. Okay, I see Sulabh has
And
a yeah. Sulabh, can you
Hello. Uh, Hello, Via. Actually, I want to ask you why we are including that percent EV penetration as a factor. Like
Mhm.
total car sold is the market size only, I guess.
Mhm.
So, like, what is the importance of involving the second factor in our solution?
Good point. So let's go back to the prompt. So what was the prompt? Like, what was the question?
What is the market size of? electric vehicles in India in the year 2025.
Correct. Right. And then we clarified in the next um, segment that we have to, when we think about EVs, we only have to think about cars within the EV segment, right?
Right?
Right. So, what
Mm.
are the total value of EV or electric cars sold in the year 2025? This is what we are ultimately trying to get to, right?
Yeah.
So, I started with what is the total number of any kind of cars, petrol, diesel, right? Um, CNG, electric. So, this is the first way, first variable that you will put a number to. Then you will put a fun, then you'll sort of like funnel it down to out of this entire universe of cars, what is my total percentage of EV or electric vehicles as a penetration in this entire pie of cars sold, right? Which is
Got it.
where
Yeah,
we
got
start
it.
with
Got
that
it.
second vehicle.
I just thought like we are already calculating total number of EV cars sold. Sorry. So sorry.
Understood. And that is why this is a great situation, because this is what happens with the interviewer. If the communication steps are not clear, interviewer might think, oh, you have already put down an EV number, why we are taking this, right? Hence, it is important that we say that there are three clear components. I'm taking an entire universe of cars and I'm funneling it down to the penetration for EVs specifically. And then I'm taking some estimate on what is the total selling price of average one EV vehicle. And the product of these three is going to give me an estimate of what is the market size for 2025, right? So this anchors the interviewer very clearly how you're thinking. At the end of the day, the number could be like 10%, 15% off here and there, but then your ability to arrive at the answer is correct. Make sense?
Yes.
Got it. Any other questions at this point?
You can also drop a question in the chat box.
And please try to make it very, very Q&A heavy, right? This session is for you guys. Please don't be shy, don't hesitate. Any question is a good question, and it's a great opportunity to, in fact, learn for the entire group. So please feel free to ask your questions. Awesome. Okay, so then we'll progress. So once you set up the approach, the next step is how do you sharpen the assumptions on each of the individual components of this approach? So the first component that we talked about, or the first variable in that mathematical equation, was what is the total number of cars, any kind of cars, fossil-based cars or electric cars, which are sold in 2025. We have to arrive at that number, right? So, like I said, it could depend on what kind of information you already know. Where would you start from? So, I knew that as as a market, there are almost like 4 to 4.5 million sort of cars which are sold every year in India, right? And the number stays between it, and it grows very slowly with the pace of our economic growth, or our macro country's economic growth, which is 6 to 7% every year, right? So, and this is the information I held, which is why I could start from here. If you did not know this, it's fine. It's not there's not one way to arrive at this answer. There are many, many different ways to arrive at this answer, right? So in this specific approach, I knew that in 2024, we would have sold somewhere close to 4 million. And then there would have been a growth rate in this industry with respect to the growth of the economy. Our economy grows with respect to 6 to 7%, right? Now, where does this information of 6%, 7% comes into picture, right? These are again some of the things that you will learn if you consume and read economic information. If you're just generally interested to learn about markets, the interested to learn about specific kind of industries, you will slowly and slowly start building these fact packs for yourselves, right? And which are extremely helpful when you're doing these kind of conversations with, or these kind of guesstimate problem statements.
I think there's a question in the chat box from Soumya Tripathi. It goes like, if we don't know many numbers beforehand related to the prompt, should we ask the interviewer for help or should we change our approach?
Great question. I think you should always put a hypothesis in front of the interviewer. You should not ask for an answer straight away. For example, let's say you communicated your approach is going to be, I'm going to use total number of cars, but at the top of my head, I don't know what is the total number of cars sold in India, right? Then I would further try to put a hypothesis of how can I arrive at that number first? What would be my thought process to even estimate that number, right? And that could have some sort of other mathematical sub equation within it. For example, hey, um, there's a certain population demographic in India, right? Distribute, cut it by some sort of income, and cars are more of a high to middle income sort of a phenomena, right? Low to further low, like poverty situations, like those kind of groups do not own a car, right? So you can put a certain number of car ownership based on the income group, right? Now, if you say that I don't know what is the population size and what is the distribution of income across the different segments of the population, those are some areas where you could put some high level estimations, and you can involve your interviewer by saying, I think it should lie somewhere around this. What do you think? Is that correct, or am I slightly off, right? With this approach, again, you were able to show, if you didn't know numbers directly, you were able to put together an estimate, an intelligent guess to arrive at that number in the first place. And you were able to show your thinking. Versus if you directly ask, oh, I don't know the number of cars sold. Can you tell me the total number of cars sold? Right? So then it's kind of a um, bummer for the interviewer, right? Because you are being tested on whether you can put intelligent statistics and arrive at the answer versus getting to the answer. Does that make sense, Soumya? Awesome. All right. So now we sort of have a first idea of what is the capacity of the interviewer, right?
You're muted, Aman. Okay, good. Uh, Aman, you're muted. No. Meanwhile, if anyone has any more questions, you can drop it in the box for our speaker to answer. I think
I was
it's a
saying,
network issue.
yeah, could be. But I was just saying that there is, trust me, like I've been to all parts of the world, and there's never a webinar without IT issues. So we're doing something great. Let me share my screen again and let's begin. Let's resume. Okay, so we solved for that first variable. What is the total number of cars sold in the year 2025, right? What we did, we knew some number about what would be the number of cars sold in last year, 2024, which was about 4 million. I knew this. You can also arrive at this or a ballpark of this. And then I knew that our economy sort of grows, or any sort of consumer industry, right? So cars and automobiles are a very consumer centric product, right? So all of your industries which kind of make these products which are consumed or B2C in nature, like they grow with this similar kind of a percentage of like 5 to 6%, right? So this gives you a framework of whenever you have to estimate about, let's say, how many toothpaste or how many, or like Dabur Chavanprash or whatever, any product which is like a consumer centric product. And if you have to put a annualized growth rate to it, you can use this 6 to 7%. And that's how you kind of build your fact pack, by doing more examples and by learning about different categories of products and how do they grow. So by putting that growth number, you arrive at the 4.24 million would be the ballpark overall total number of cars sold in a year. And whenever you arrive at a number, always do some sort of simplification for yourself. For example, if you carry over the 4.24 million across your calculation, it's sort of difficult, right? To handle 2 decimal points in a back of the envelope calculation. So always clarify with your interviewer if it's fine to simplify it, right? In this case, can you use a 4.2 million instead of 4.24, right? It's easy. While you're doing this, you have to communicate and voice out every single step of doing this with the interviewer. Do not make it a, don't go in your shell, and don't make it a single person interviewer exercise. Your interviewer has to feel involved and has to understand how and why you are taking certain numbers and certain assumptions, right? And that shows your thinking. The whole purpose of the process is to show your thinking. Cool. Then we carry on and move on to the next second variable of this equation, which is EV penetration, right? Sort of an early product, is a late stage product, is a middle stage product. What do you guys think? Like, is it a mature product which has penetrated everywhere in the country, or is it a very early phenomena? It's an early phenomena, right? Correct, Nathan. Right? So this is again, put these products in the category of whether something is early stage or like mature stage, right? And that gives you whether the penetration for that particular product in a country like India would be single, like 10 to 15%, like very early stages. Middle would be somewhere close to like 20 to 60%, and then 60 and plus would be like your mature stages, right? Those are the broader ranges of how you can think about putting some number to these category of products. EVs in particular are a very, very early phenomenon. Like even in the US, they're just coming up, right? So in a growing economy like India, you can literally think of like a 5 to 10%, any single digit number to it. For ease of calculation, let's say that we put a 10% number to it, that it's like there is some news around Tesla coming in India now, right? So there could be some acceleration to this growth and this adoption. So you can voice out your logic that, hey, till last year, it used to be like a very, very early phenomena with like 2 to 3% sort of a penetration. But with Tata and Tesla sort of putting a foot on the pedal and accelerating this growth, in 2025, it's possible that we kind of move the needle from a 5% to a 10%. So for this exercise, I'm going to be using a 10%. Does that sound right to you? If you communicate this to the interviewer, kudos, right? This is what the interviewer is looking to understand. Any questions here? And Sulabh, thanks for the thumbs up. I need engagement from everyone. If there are questions or anything that you have learned, please keep doing that. Okay. Let's move to the next, third piece of this puzzle, the average selling price of an EV in India, right? Now, simplify this problem. Now, average selling price, if I were to just replace this and simplify it, what is the average selling price of a car in India, right? How would you have approached that? Anybody, any volunteer who wants to take a stab at, if I were to replace this problem with a smaller problem of just give me an average selling price of a regular car in India, a petrol vehicle in India? So in my MBA, there was a concept of cold calling, which meant that I can pick on anybody and had to unmute and give me some sort of an approach.
I think there's a lot of comments coming in the
Chat.
text box.
Okay. So I'm seeing some numbers. People are giving me some numbers. Now, this is again sort of um, great that at least you're putting some numbers. But can I take an example? Nitin, you put 8 lakhs. Can you unmute yourself and share why do you think or how did you arrive at the 8 lakhs? And we're all learning here, so don't be shy. Just try to think, or just share how whichever way you arrived at the 8 lakh. If you think that you just knew it right off the top of your head, it's also fine. Okay. If not Nitin, Bodu Bhumika, you said okay. It's an intelligent guess. Nice. But so this is exactly what I was telling in the previous section, that if you just shoot an 8 lakh as a number, right? This is when the interviewer thinks, okay, but I did not get to see your thinking here. How did you arrive at the 8 lakh, right? Ultimately, you have to break it down and make it so idiot proof and simple that by doing some quant of that idiot proofing, even if you arrive at a 5 lakh, I should be fine with it, right? I can always question the process. I can never question the end outcome. I don't know if 8 lakh is the right or wrong answer, but I need to understand how did you arrive at the 8 lakh, right? So the success on the guesstimate interview is dependent on that, right? How are you structuring and putting out and voicing out that structure for the interviewer? Let's take another volunteer. The either Bhumika or PWN Rajay. If you want to just unmute and say something. Yeah, I think I saw a hand. Yeah, go for it.
Uh,
Hello, sir.
Okay, Bhumika. Okay, let's take a pause. Bhumika, why don't you go since we are able to hear you?
Yeah, I guess 10 lakh that the cost of the car, it depends upon the uh, market, and also the battery size, and also it's also taken account the people whom they are targeting.
Hmm.
Mostly depending upon the economic status also in India, I thought it will be 10 lakhs is which more affordable option, I thought.
Hmm. Hmm. Great. I think this was a good starting point. It showed me some thinking that you put some logical assumption around that, hey, affordability is a big challenge in India. Most of the cars that I see on the roads, they are Maruti vehicles, and Maruti is known as a brand for making more budget friendly vehicles. Hence, the cost should lie somewhere in the middle of 5 to 10 lakh. And for the ease of simplification, let me put a 10 lakh number to it. If you arrived at this 10 lakh number with these 4 to 5 funnels of information and tiers of logical thinking, again, I am happy as an interviewer. That is what I'm looking at. If you skip this step and arrive at the exact right answer of EVs or the initial prompt, I trust me guys, you won't be successful and you would be disadvantaged versus somebody else who would have done this. Any questions?
there's also an explanation by Nitin in the
Let me look at
text
that.
box.
So Nitin says today no car comes lesser than 5 lakhs, and getting a 10 lakh car is not affordable for any middle class family. India has mostly middle class population, so it should be an average of 5 to 10 lakh, and you arrived at an 8 lakh. You picked an slightly lower number than 10 lakh. Perfect. I love the fact. And kind of similar, kind of an affordability oriented thinking that you put together, what Bhumika was also mentioning a few minutes back. Great, guys. So this is, don't skip voicing out these steps, right? For each component. That again, reiterating that message that this is the name of the game in guesstimates. All right. So I did the math thinking about EVs in general, that I took different make and models of EVs. I know that there are hatchbacks, EVs are in compact SUVs, your Cretas and I think Celtos of the world are just kind of killing the market these days. So they come in the range of about 10 to 15 lakhs. So I just use that as a proxy. And then there is a luxury segment, which is very niche. But yeah, there is still a penetration of 2 to 3% there. So taking in blended, I took a number of 15 lakh for EVs, right? Electric vehicles. On the petrol vehicles, it could be that, yes, like the average for those petrol vehicles and diesel vehicles lies somewhere in the range of 8 to 10 lakhs. And EVs are slightly on the higher side, slightly more expensive today. So it kind of also checks the thinking that yes, like EVs could be on the ballpark of 12 to 15 lakh for their average selling price today. Next step, since our initial target was to convert everything to a dollar million, we should always work and keep our units synchronized and sacrosanct across the mathematics, right? Wherever we do a price-oriented calculation in this mathematical setup. So convert it into a dollar value and always communicate that, okay, as last step, I'm going to be converting this 15 lakh into a dollar value number for ease of calculation. So it comes out somewhere around like $18,000. And these are the things you should, by the way, also learn at the back of your head. What is the generic like exchange rate coming along, right? Right now, the US to India exchange rate, like $1 is almost equal to 80 to 90. It keeps swinging in this range, but you can, to be on the safer side, always use a number of 80. If it is euros, you can use a number of 100, right? And stuff like that. If there is a specific number that the interviewer wants you to use, he or she will let you know. Cool. So we put a certain number to individual three components of this mathematical setup. Now the next step is the simplest part for engineers. Let me guess what it is. Making the calculation, right? So this is the most simple step, and hence I'm not going to give you any brownie points even if you get it right? This is the bare minimum expected from you. This is table stakes. So this doesn't give you any brownie points. However, if you screw this step, I'm going to be judging you big time because you guys are all like, you have cracked J's and whatnot, right? So it is expected that you simplify the math, but you do the simple math accurately, correct? So it's a very simple 4.2 million times the 10% penetration for EVs times the $18,000 ASP, average selling price per EV. That math comes out to be, and you can take your time that, hey, this is the math. Let me take a minute to do the math on my paper, do the math cleanly and clearly on the paper, and arrive at, okay, it's coming somewhere about $7,500 million dollars, or about $7.5 billion, right? This SI unit conversion, million to billion to trillion versus thousands to lakhs to crores, the number of zeros, I can't tell you, like there are Rhodes scholars and Harvard Business School MBA grads who fuck up the number of zeros so many times, all the time. I see this every time when I interview candidates for BCG. So it seems simple, but it's in that pressure situation. These are the things where people screw up the most. So practice these things, even when you are doing these exercises with your friends. Treat those exercises and times like serious interview situations, and do voice these evening out of your zeros, structuring your math, your organization of the details on the paper very, very seriously and sincerely, right? Do not skip this part. All right. So you arrived at a number of 7.5 billion. There's a very famous saying in BCG, whenever you see a number, the next obvious two words that should come out of your mouth is, so what, right? So what do you do with this 7.5 billion, right? You are a strategic advisor and you're not a calculator. right? So you should always present the next steps or contextualize this number with respect to the problem statement that was at your hands, right? Which is the next step. Sense check whether 7.5 billion sounds about right. You still started out doing a guesstimate, right? So whether this estimate is directionally right or sounds directionally right, do that sense check always. If it's too small or too high, right? Voice out your number, voice out and communicate that, okay, this sounds about right for the scale and size of an Indian economy, right? For just a 10% penetration, it kind of makes sense. And then the next part, what's the next step? How will you sort of take the decision using this number? So the next step is exactly, hey, Tata as a large conglomerate auto manufacturer with just 10% opportunity can uh, get a go at a 7.5 billion revenue in just a year, right? There's a huge opportunity, and Tata should look to kind of grab this opportunity and put a manufacturing plant for EVs or putting some strategic partnerships for EV manufacturing together, right? So that's the takeaway for a CEO that, okay, it's a huge opportunity and I should go ahead at it. And we have also done some realistic good math around it. So it checks. So that's the purpose of doing a guesstimate. Within the 25 minutes, we realized here together that EV, just from a point of making money, sounds like a great opportunity, right? Now the next steps would be when I go ahead, do some deep dive on the industry. What are the challenges? How do I do the partnerships? What is the regulation around it? Those are the next steps, right? Of how you would put this high level plan into some sort of like tactical initiatives and a roadmap to execution. That's what the on-the-job consulting projects look like. Okay, we know what is the number. How can we get that number? Can you put a strategy to it? Right. So that's something that hopefully we will cover, or the team here, Consulting Club, will cover in the next progressive sections. How to put a strategy to this high-level guesstimate number. But this is what all I had to cover. Let me take a pause and hear some questions from you guys. So
There's a question from Pranchal. Should I read it out or?
I can see it, Sanchit. Thanks. How to start with sanity check? Okay, great question. I think this is where Pranjal, there are some things which are factually so correct that you can always kind of sense check your numbers against those factual accuracies. For example, right? I think there are some things as you should always learn as fact packs or cheat sheets, right? In this exercise, for example, India's population. Now it is a number that every Indian should know, in my opinion, right? So if you don't know that number, um, yes, every sense check opportunity is going to be a hit or a miss. So always build some sort of those actually or like 100% correct guardrails for you that can give you a ballpark range to sense check your numbers and whether you fall right in that ballpark range or not, right? Um, Now you can do a quick check of what is the total car market in India, right? If this was the problem statement, or what is the total number of population? Almost 30% of India should own some sort of car. Just sense checking around that number, taking a 10% of that should give you some sort of like ballpark range of, yes, this sounds about right to me, right? You could be 20% off. It's fine, right? But you still, without knowing a lot about this industry, were able to get to an 80% correct answer, right? That's the purpose of a guesstimate. That's how you should sense check. Any other questions? Okay. I think if you don't have any other questions, I would love to hear in the comments um, what what is that one thing that you learned? Give me one key takeaway, like something that I sort of was able to iterate and reiterate so much that you're going to take that good practice in your interview.
Hey, Aman, before we go to that, I think we floated a few questions within our CNA group, and there were some questions. So I'll read those out to you.
Sure.
When you're studying the Indian market, and as that opposed to when you're studying the international market, what differences should we keep in mind?
Yeah.
And how to act upon those questions?
Yeah, I think some of these macro developmental statistics around, you know, the population demographics, like they are very different for India versus any other developed economy, right? You don't have to learn these things about every other country, right? Learn one to two key markets. Like US and India are two very key markets, right? Um, Almost everything in the world is benchmarked against the US market. So you can always restrict yourself to learning, hey, if I have to think about a developed economy, I can always use US as example. If I have to think about a developing economy, I can always use India's or China's example. But being in India, you can safely kind of learn these statistics about India, and most of your problem statements and your answers can be derived by learning about India, right? And this is exactly what is different, right? A developed economy grows very slowly because it is already so big and has grown so much that the year-on-year growth there would be like 1 to 2%, like 2 to 3% at max. Versus in India, which is growing, which means that on an average, every year it is going to grow by somewhere about like 7 to 8% or 10%, right? So those high statistical numbers. And that's the sanity check that as an interviewer, I'm able to grasp if you're presenting your argument like that, right? That you understand how to kind of look at different markets and put nuances of those markets together.
There was another question which was along the lines of not the question itself, but what are the other things that the interviewer looks at? How to be more presentable and just something like that.
Yeah, I think your overall body language, right? So consulting, as we speak, right, it's a contact sport, right? It's not an individual sport. You're always put in a team. So your ability to work in a team, staying cool, calm, and composed in front of a client, your communication has to be structured always. Even if you, let's say, make a mistake, just acknowledge it. Oh, thanks for correcting me there. Let me use this and progress from this particular step in a structural manner, right? um, Communicating your thinking is the single most important thing, right? If you say that, like I said in the beginning, if I get a question and if I respond in terms of an answer, that's not going to work. You have to always think, how do I arrive at the answer that is going to validate and give comfort to my client? That is what the client is looking for. Okay, so somebody who's a CEO must be a very smart guy, right? They're not obviously looking to just get a right answer that they can Google, right? They hire consultants to get validation towards their thinking process and whether arriving at the answer kind of gives them the comfort, right? So that's what you have to think about when you approach these situations. So your overall body language, your ability to show your thinking, your structure, and your ability to work in teams in different kinds of people, knowing the different cultural sensitivities around those people is important. And those are the things that you should always think about when you're practicing your casing rounds.
In the chat, we have a question from Soumya. It's a CV related question. Is not having a strong position of responsibility a deal breaker for consulting roles?
I don't think so. However, unfortunately, you're in a country like India where somebody is going to have it, right? So it's more of a eliminations factor versus like a selection factor, right? So even if you don't have the most marquee position of responsibility, try to write about whatever initiative you have taken in whatever context. It could be a very, very small initiative that, hey, I was a, I took an initiative to clean up my hostel and run a cleanup drive in my hostel. And I kind of organized that drive. I mobilized 15 to 20 volunteers and I organized it for almost a month and created awareness about a certain topic. Now, this is not a position of responsibility that runs for an entire academic year, but this is a very, very interesting initiative that you took, you led, you planned, and you executed. So talking about these authentic things sensibly and accurately and just authentically, right? That is good enough in my opinion. So consultants do not come with a certain specific kind of a resume. Every kind of a experience is helpful. It's a very background agnostic industry because you're almost thinking first principle and learning on the job every new case and every other time. Sanchit, you're on mute, I think.
There is another question by Bhumika, which says, is not taking any case study competitions a problem?
I don't think so. It's not a problem. Again, it's something that is good if you have had it. It's not a deal breaker. If you have not had it, but you demonstrate the process that we were able to discuss today very strongly on the day of the interview, nothing matters. You could have just come out of your bed that morning and have done nothing in your, you know, in your experience before. But if you demonstrate a very strong thought process and on the day you perform well, nothing matters, right? Uh, Obviously, case study competitions give you another avenue to practice and put and execute what we discussed today, which is why it's important. It's a learning ground. But if you're already good at it, if you have demonstrated that learning through practice and through these kind of exercises through other forums, if you've had those kind of friends who kind of have given you good reps on building this toolkit, I don't think any specific kind of a case study or whatever competition matters.
Right. Um, I'll go to what Karthikeya said after this, but last question. So we here learn a lot of case frameworks and product related stuff. How
Yeah.
useful is that in an interview for consulting, and is that useful for you even at your job? The frameworks that I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great approach, at least at this point in time when you guys have not had any real world experience of working in a professional environment. This is a great approach to building that structural thinking muscle, right? Even if you do it in a very academic way right now, when you enter a real world, you will have real data to put behind real problems. And you will be able to use these structural thinking frameworks and arrive at the answer quickly versus somebody who hasn't had this, right? They will first have to build this muscle, then have to start asking for the right information, then do the calculation, then arrive at answer. So they're already behind the pack, right? So yes, it is going to be very, very helpful. Keep participating and keep engaging in these kind of exercises within your small groups. Even if the club is not able to organize this every day, this is something you can literally do with your friends every day, like over a dinner conversation, over a coffee conversation, when you're walking to your classes. I lost my bicycle in my first year itself, right? So whenever I walked till the core 4, me and my friend used to do these kind of exercises. Like we used to discuss interesting things, debate, and build these kind of good fact packs for ourselves, right? To put a muscle behind how to think, right? This is literally an exercise of how to think, how to kind of build that skill set. So keep doing these things, keep engaging, and keep listening into people who are good at it, right? And keep giving each other honest feedback if you're good at it. Sanchit, you went on mute, I think, again.
Just the last 2 points. It's on the chat box if you can read it. Kartikeya says the key takeaway is not just to accept the number at face value, instead to consider its context and its implications forward.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is what the name of the game is, right? And see, in today's world, the again, in a real professional environment, those who will be able to ask the right questions to ChatGPT, the curiosity and the right ability to kind of break the problem down and just use ChatGPT to kind of accelerate the last step, is going to define how successful you will be in the process. So yes, bang on, Karthikeya.
Right. I think that is all for the questions. I have a question from my side. Do you also use ChatGPT for your
Oh,
work?
wait, let me share my screen and I'll show it to you. Um, so you see this, it's pinned. I in fact prepared for this session using ChatGPT, literally. Uh, so use it. It's a very, very interesting tool, very, very helpful tool. But do not take anything on face value again. Like it's a tool, like I said, everything that
Fact
was,
check.
it's a fact. Yeah, fact check everything and ask what you need. Don't ask for the entire brain dump. So you can't skip the process. of doing the initial thinking and putting a plan together. You can only accelerate the process of what you did by putting a simple Google or browsing earlier. It accelerates that for you, right? So it's a tool. It's not, it's an enabler, but it is not the solution itself.
Totally agreed. So I have a mini announcement for you and also for the participants of this meet. So the Consulting and Analytics Club has launched the third edition of their business casebook. Uh, so this is all in all guide for all your business case studies and guesstimates, and anyone who's preparing for such roles can sort of take it as a guide and prepare for the interview. The copy is available on our website and on our Instagram page. I'll also share it with you, Aman. You
Yep.
can have a look. So we've all put a lot of effort in the last 4 months and sort of made this. So really proud of that. I'll make sure you also have a look. And the access to the book can be seen from our Instagram page. So with that, I think we will be ending our session. So on behalf of CNA, I would like to thank you, Mr. Aman Tomar, and all the participants for joining. Your perspectives on guesstimates and consulting careers has expertise, and we hope to stay in touch with you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Was lovely and good luck. Reach out if you have any questions and feel free again. I'm here to help.